When I saw that little boy sinking into the mud, his expensive shoes barely visible under the thick brown water, my heart stopped for a moment. He didn't cry for help the way most children do. He just looked around, confused, silent, as if the world had suddenly turned against him. I didn't know then that he was the son of one of the richest men in the city. To me, he was just a child, scared, stuck, and alone. The rain had been falling all morning. I was walking back from the market, my old slippers making that familiar squishing sound on the wet ground. The basket in my hand was half full, a few yams, some rice, and a tiny bottle of cooking oil I'd saved up to buy. My back ached, but I remember thinking that at least the rain would cool the air. Then I heard the splash. It wasn't loud, but something about it made me turn. At first, I thought it was a stray dog or maybe a sack of garbage washed down from the road. But then I saw him, a boy no older than 10, struggling as the mud pulled him down inch by inch. He tried to move, but one of his legs seemed stiff. He couldn't balance. His hands trembled as he reached for something to hold on to. I dropped my basket without thinking. The yams rolled away, and the oil bottle broke, spilling everything I had worked for that week. But none of that mattered. I waded into the mud, the cold water rising to my knees. My old dress clung to my legs, heavy and soaked. When I finally reached him, I saw tears mixed with rain on his pale cheeks. "Hold on, baby," I whispered. "I've got you." He looked at me, frightened but trusting. His small fingers gripped my wrist tightly, like he was holding on to life itself. That's the moment everything changed. I didn't know that saving that boy would turn my quiet, struggling life upside down. I didn't know that his father, the man everyone feared and admired, would soon come searching for me. And I didn't know that one act of kindness in the mud would uncover secrets that money had buried for years. My name is Ruth, I'm 47 years old, and for most of my life, I've been invisible, at least two people who live in glass houses and ride in cars that shine like mirrors. But I've learned that sometimes it's the ones you don't see who end up changing everything. I live in a small wooden house at the edge of the city, the kind of place most people pass by without noticing. The roof leaks when it rains, the floor creaks when I walk, and the paint has long faded into a tired brown. Yet it's home. It's where I've raised my two children, Michael and Naomi, ever since their father left 13 years ago. Michael is 20 now. He's quiet, thoughtful, and carries a sadness in his eyes that he tries to hide behind jokes. Naomi is 16, full of dreams bigger than the sky. She says she'll be a nurse one day, maybe even a doctor. I tell her I believe her, though deep inside, I wonder if life will let her. Every morning before the sun rises, I walk to the market. I buy what little I can afford and sell cooked food near the bus stop. Some days, I make enough to bring home a bit of meat or soap. Other days, just rice and hope. But I never complain. My mother taught me that gratitude is wealth that never runs out. That morning, the one that changed everything, had started like any other. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds. I remember Naomi wrapping her old-school scarf around her neck and saying, "Mama, it looks like rain." I smiled. "Then it's a good day to plant blessings," I said, using my mother's old phrase. She laughed softly and ran out before I could kiss her goodbye. Michael had already gone to help at the mechanic's shop where he worked. So I locked the door and started my walk to the market, humming an old church song to keep my spirit warm. The streets were half empty. The rich had already gone to work in their cars, and the rest of us hurried before the storm came. I passed the big white house on the corner, the one with high walls, a fountain, and guards at the gate. They said it belonged to Mr. Donovan, the billionaire businessman who owned half the city. People talked about him like he was a god, powerful, unreachable, and ruthless. I had never seen him myself, only his cars gliding past like dark shadows. But that morning, as I walked by his gate, I noticed something strange. A small wheelchair near the garden, half covered with a plastic sheet. It looked expensive, shiny, and new. I wondered whose it was. Then I kept walking. The rain started as a drizzle, then turned into a heavy downpour. I pulled the edge of my scarf over my head and hurried to find shelter under an old mango tree. The market would be slow that day, but I needed food for the house. So I kept going, one step at a time, through the puddles and mud. When I finally reached the market, most of the sellers were packing up. I bought a few things, some rice, 2 yams, a little oil, just enough to cook something warm for dinner. The rain softened a bit, and I decided to take the shorter path home. The one that cut through the open field behind Mr. Donovan's estate. It was muddy, yes, but it saved me 20 minutes of walking. That path was quiet, just the sound of raindrops hitting the grass and the distant hum of cars on the highway. I liked walking there. It reminded me of the village where I grew up, where life was slow and every step had peace in it. But that day, peace turned into panic in seconds. I heard a splash, faint, but wrong. At first, I thought it was just a branch falling into a puddle. But then came another sound, a soft gasp, like someone trying not to scream. When I turned, I saw him, a boy, maybe 10 or 11, wearing a white shirt now soaked in brown with mud. He was half submerged in the ditch that formed when the rainwater overflowed from the estate's side. The ground there was treacherous. Even adults could sink if they weren't careful. I called out, "Hey, are you okay?" He didn't answer. His face was pale, his arms trembling. I saw that one of his legs wasn't moving right, twisted slightly inward. Then I understood. He couldn't get up because he couldn't use that leg. I dropped my basket and ran. The yams tumbled out, rolling into the mud, but I didn't stop. The cold water reached my knees, and I shivered, but all I could think was, don't let this child drown. When I reached him, I grabbed his shoulders and tried to lift him. He was light, too light, and his clothes were thin, far too fine for a rainy day. His lips were trembling, and when he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "It hurts," he said. "My leg, it hurts." "It's okay, baby," I whispered back. "I've got you," with one arm around his waist and the other under his legs. I pulled him up, step by step, until we reached the dry patch near the mango tree. I was breathing hard, my arms shaking, but I kept going. I sat him down on the grass and looked at his leg. The ankle was swollen, and his trousers were torn. "What's your name?" I asked gently. He looked away, then said, Eli nodded. "Okay, Eli, where's your home?" He pointed weakly toward the big white house behind the fence, and that's when I realized he was the billionaire's son. I sat there with him for a while, letting the rain wash over us. I tore a piece of my wrapper and wrapped his ankle. He winced, but didn't cry. There was a quiet strength in his eyes, the kind that comes from pain to familiar. A few minutes later, a loud voice shouted from a distance. Eli, it was a man's voice, deep and frantic. Then came two guards running through the field, their uniforms already splattered with mud. When they saw me holding the boy, they froze for a second, surprised a poor woman in soaked clothes, cradling their master's son. One of them rushed forward. "Madam, please step back," he shouted, but Eli grabbed my arm tightly. "Don't go," he whispered. I looked into his eyes, and something in my heart softened even more. There was fear there, not just from the fall, but from something deeper. I didn't know it yet, but that fear was the beginning of a story that would tie my life to his forever. The guards lifted Eli carefully, but he kept one hand around my wrist like a small anchor. "Don't go," he whispered again, his lips shaking from the cold. "I'm right here," I said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." One guard wrapped his jacket around the boy's shoulders. The other spoke into a small radio, his voice tight. "Found him by the south ditch. He's safe. We need Mr. Donovan at the east gate. Send the car." I stood there, dripping rain, mud up to my knees, my basket overturned like a broken promise. The guards kept looking at me with a strange mix of gratitude and suspicion, like they wanted to thank me and also ask why I was there at all. The car arrived in seconds. It was large and black, the kind of car that eats the road and never looks back. A man stepped out, tall and stern, with eyes that could slice through stone. His suit was dark, but the rain made it shine. I knew at once who he was. "Eli," he said. His voice cracked. "Eli, are you hurt?" The boy nodded weakly and reached for his father's hand, but he did not let go of mine. Mr. Donovan saw it. His eyes moved from our fingers to my face. For a long breath, he said nothing. Then he crouched beside his son and touched his cheek. "What happened?" he asked. "I slipped," Eli whispered. "My leg, it twisted." He glanced at me. "She helped me." Mr. Donovan's gaze softened, but only for a second. He looked at my wet dress, the torn edge of my wrapper used to wrap Eli's ankle, the broken oil bottle at my feet. "Thank you," he said carefully. "Get in the car. Both of you, sir." One guard asked, surprised. "Both," he repeated. Now I hesitated. My home was the other way. I didn't belong in a car like that, but Eli squeezed my hand again, and that was enough. We climbed in together. The doors closed with a soft thud that felt like a line drawn across my life before and after. Inside, it smelled like leather and rain. The driver pulled away, and the city slid past like a painting blurred by tears. I held Eli's hand in both of mine. He leaned into me slightly, the way small children do when they are scared but trying to be brave. Mr. Donovan made a call. His words were clipped and fast. "We're coming through the south entrance. Tell Dr. Nevers to be ready." The car turned, the gate opened, and we slipped into a world where grass was trimmed like velvet and water never muddied the path. The house loomed over us, white and perfect, the kind of perfect that makes you feel small. Inside, everything was quiet and shiny. A woman rushed toward us, tall, elegant, with a face that looked carved from cold stone. "Sir," she said. "What?" "She saved Eli," Mr. Donovan said. "The nurse is on her way." The woman looked at my soaked clothes. Her lips tightened, not quite a smile. "I'm Vera," she said. "House manager?" "This way." They led us to a room that looked like a small clinic. White bed, bright lights, cabinets of medicine. The nurse arrived, checked the ankle, pressed here and there while Eli winced. "It's a sprain," she said finally. "Painful, but it will heal. We should elevate and ice it. No weight on it for a week." "Thank you," Mr. Donovan said. Then he turned to me with that same careful voice. "And thank you, miss." "Ruth," I said. "Just Ruth." He nodded. "Ruth, you saved my son's life." I shook my head. "I only did what anyone would do." "Not everyone," he said. The words hung there, heavy. Vera handed me a towel. Another woman brought a blanket and, to my surprise, draped it over my shoulders like I was fragile glass. I whispered a thank you. My fingers were numb from the cold, but my heart was pounding with a strange new fear, the fear of being seen. The nurse finished wrapping Eli's ankle. He looked at me, his eyes now softer. "Will you stay?" he asked. I glanced at Mr. Donovan. He was watching me too closely. "If you want me to," I said. "I do," he whispered. So I stayed. They put me in the kitchen with a cup of tea and a slice of warm bread. The kitchen was not like mine. Everything had a place. Everything shone. As I ate, I tried to stop my hands from shaking. The bread tasted like comfort. The cooks whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. Where did she come from? From the field. With a boy. Look at her dress. So much mud. Vera came in and asked me for my address, my full name, my children's names. I answered simply, one word at a time. Her pen moved like a blade. "Thank you," she said. "We will have a car take you home when Mr. Donovan is ready." "I can walk," I said. "It's not far." Her eyes flicked to my old slippers. "It's far enough," she said, and left. When I finally saw Eli again, he was propped on pillows, clean and warm, with a soft blue blanket. His hair was still damp. He looked smaller against all that white. "Ruth," he said, like my name was a safe place. I sat beside him. "How's your ankle?" "It hurts," he said, then added, "but not as much now." We were quiet. Outside, the rain tapped the window like gentle fingers. After a while, he asked, "How did you know to help me?" I smiled. A mother knows when a child is in trouble. "My mother died," he said, almost like a fact in a book. His face barely moved. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't know." He nodded. "It was 2 years ago. Since then, my leg got worse. I get scared near water." He paused. "But today I wanted to be brave." "You were brave," I said. "Bravery isn't loud. It's just doing the next right thing." He looked at me for a long time, and I saw it then. It has a clean face and polite hands, but it is still loneliness. The door opened. Mr. Donovan stood there, his tie gone, his shoulders slightly bent. He looked less like a statue and more like a man. "Ruth," he said. "Can we talk?" I stood, smoothing the blanket over Eli's leg. "I'll be back," I told him. He nodded, like we had a promise. We stood in a small sitting room with pale walls and a painting of a river that never floods. "I want to thank you," he began, "and I want to make sure you're taken care of." He reached into a drawer and took out an envelope. "Please accept this." My stomach tightened. Money changes the way eyes look at you. "I didn't do it for money," I said softly. "I know," he replied. "That's why I want to give it." I looked at the envelope. I thought of Naomi's school fees, Michael's tired work shoes, the roof that sighed in the wind. I thought of my pride, thin as paper. "I can't take that," I said finally. "But thank you." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect or confusion? I could not tell. "At least, let me send you home," he said. I nodded. "Thank you." He walked me to the door himself. The rain had become a soft mist. As I stepped out, he said, "Ruth, would you consider visiting Eli tomorrow? He asked for you." I looked down at my hands, the cracks from years of soap and water. "If he wants me to," I said. "I'll come." The car dropped me at the edge of my road. My neighbors were outside, washing steps and talking under the last of the rain. Their eyes followed the car like cats watching a bird. Naomi ran to me, her school bag bumping against her side. "Mama, where did you go?" "Who was that?" We were worried. I held her face in my hands. "I'm fine," I said. A child needed help. Michael stood behind her, quiet as always, his eyes reading my face like a map. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," I said, and hugged them both. I could feel the eyes of the street, the tilt of curious heads. News moves fast where walls are thin. Inside, we ate rice with a little oil and salt. The house smelled like wet wood and warm breath. While we ate, I told them a simple version of the day. I left out the way the grass in that estate looked too green to be real. I left out the envelope. Naomi's eyes shone. "Mama, you're a hero," she said. "No," I replied, "just a mother." Michael washed the plates after. He kept glancing at me. When the house was quiet, he said, "Be careful, Ma. People like that. They want to pay for everything. Then they think they own the rest." I touched his arm. "I'll be careful." I went back the next day. And the next, it started as a visit. It became a rhythm. Eli would be waiting, his hair combed neatly, a small stack of books on the bed he rarely opened. He liked to listen. He liked stories about ordinary things. I told him about the market lady who sang as she measured rice, about the baby who always slept through the loudest thunder, about the stray cat who had started sitting on our steps like she owned the house. He told me about the way water sounded in the big fountain at night, about a tutor who talked too fast, about his mother's laugh, light like a chime. He told me about the day his leg first failed him in the schoolyard, and how everything after that felt like walking on careful air. Sometimes I brought him small things. A mango with a bright yellow heart, a paper crane Naomi had taught me to fold, a scarf that still smelled like the soap I used. He held each like a treasure. "Will you come tomorrow?" he asked once. "If you want me to," I said. "I always want you to," he whispered. People began to talk, as people do. At the market, voices floated like leaves. "She goes to the big house now. Maybe they're paying her. Maybe she wants something." I lowered my eyes and kept stirring my pot. Gossip has quick feet and thin bones. It breaks easily but rarely dies. One afternoon, as I left the estate, I saw two women near the gate. Their clothes were fine, their smiles were not. "That's her," one said, not bothering to hide her voice. "The woman from the ditch." "Imagine," the other replied. "Some people get lucky in the strangest ways." I walked past them slowly, keeping my face calm. Inside, something small cracked. I knew that sound. It was the sound of dignity stepping around a stone. Vera's face grew colder each day. "You're here again," she would say, always straightening something that did not need straightening. "Do you have clearance?" "Eli asked me to come," I answered gently. One day, she blocked the door with her body. "You should know," she said. "This is a private home. We have procedures." "So do hearts," I replied. "They open or they close." She stepped aside, but her eyes told me I had made an enemy without trying. The first real trouble came quietly, a phone call while I was washing clothes. Michael answered, then brought me the phone, his face tight. "It's the mechanic," he said. "They're accusing me of stealing a battery." I dried my hands and took the call. The owner's voice was hot and sharp. "Your son is clever," he said. "Too clever. A battery is missing. He was the last near the shelf. Tell him not to come back." "Sir," I said, my voice calm. "Michael wouldn't steal." "Maybe not from you," he snapped. "But from me, who knows?" The line went dead. Michael stood there, fists curled. "I didn't do it," he said, his voice low. "I know," I told him. "We will find the truth. But truth moves slowly when it has no money." The next day, two men came and asked questions around the street. They wore suits too tight for the heat and carried notebooks. Everyone saw them. Everyone guessed. By evening, The rumor had grown legs. She's taking money from the rich man. Her son is stealing. God gives with one hand and takes with the other. I went to the estate the next morning with a heaviness in my chest. I meant to keep my visit short. Eli noticed at once. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Just a hard day," I said, "the kind that passes." He watched me, then reached for my hand. "Stay," he said. "Tell me about the market lady again." So I stayed, and I told the story slowly, smoothing the blanket when he winced. When I finished, he said, "I told my father you should work here." I blinked. "Work?" "As my companion," he said. "Is that the right word? To help me with exercises? To sit with me sometimes?" "I want you here, Ruth." My heart stumbled. Work meant money. Money meant school fees and shoes, and a roof that didn't sigh. But work in that house also meant being seen and being judged. Before I could answer, the door opened. Mr. Donovan stood there with a paper in his hand. "May I speak with you, Ruth?" he asked. We stepped into the hallway. The air was cooler there, like it belonged to someone else. "I want to offer you a position," he said, holding out the paper. "Part-time. Fair pay? No. Generous pay." He swallowed. "You're the first person who makes Eli light up when you arrive. I can't ignore that." I looked at the paper. The numbers blurred. My hands trembled. "Sir," I said softly, "I don't know how to be in a house like this." He studied my face. "Be the same person who walked into the mud without asking who the child belonged to." I looked down the hallway toward Eli's door. I could hear his faint humming, a tune he'd picked up from me without knowing. "May I think?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "Take your time." But time had other plans. That evening before I left, Vera cornered me near the kitchen. "A word," she said. I paused. "Yes." "You should be careful," she whispered. "People are watching. The staff, the neighbors, the board members. This is not a charity house." "I never thought it was," I replied. "Then act like it," she snapped. "We have protocols, boundaries, like doors," I said gently. "They can open or they can close." Her lips thinned. "If you work here, you will do as you're told." "I haven't said yes," I told her. "And even if I did, I only do what kindness allows." She stepped back, as if I had pushed her, though I had only used words. 2 days later, the second trouble came louder. A photo on someone's phone, then on many phones, then everywhere. In the picture, I was sitting at the edge of the white bed. Eli's hand was in mine. The caption had teeth. "From the ditch to the mansion, some people know how to rise." My neighbors saw it. The market ladies saw it. The mechanics saw it. The men in suits saw it. By evening, a woman from church knocked on my door with worry in her eyes. "Sister Ruth," she said, "maybe don't go back for a while." I thanked her, then closed the door and leaned against it, breathing. Naomi held my arm. "Mama," she whispered, "don't let bad people steal what's good." Michael sat at the table, silent. He finally said, "If you want to work there, do it. Don't let gossip feed itself." I looked at my children, one with fierce hope, one with quiet strength. "Tomorrow," I said, "I will answer." The next morning, the sky was clear. The rain had washed the city, and everything looked like it had been forgiven. I wore my cleanest dress and the scarf Naomi loved. On our step, the stray cat blinked at me like a sleepy blessing. At the estate gate, the guard nodded. "They're expecting you." Inside, I found Mr. Donovan in his study, a room with more books than a small school. He stood when I entered. "Ruth," he said, "no rush. Take a seat." I remained standing. "I will accept the position," I said. "On one condition." His eyebrows lifted. "Name it." "That I am allowed to keep my dignity," I said. "I do not want to be introduced as the woman from the ditch. I want to be known as Ruth, a mother, a worker, and a person whose hands know both sorrow and bread." He was very still for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Ruth," he said, "you will be known as Ruth." The relief was a warm wind through my chest. "Thank you," I whispered. He cleared his throat. "There is one more matter," he said. "Your son. The accusation at the mechanics. I made a few calls." My back straightened, sir. "The owner owes me money," he said. He thought telling a small lie would impress someone bigger than him. The battery was never missing. He found it after all. My hands clenched and released. "Thank you for checking," I said. holding my voice steady. "I didn't do it for thanks," he replied. "I did it because I have sons too, one still here, one gone." He looked toward the window, and for a second, the ocean of his grief showed. Then he folded it away like a handkerchief. "I'll have HR arrange a contract," he said gently. "You can start today, if you like." I nodded. I would like that. Work found me like a familiar song. In the morning, I helped Eli with his gentle stretches. We counted together, slowly, breathing with care. Sometimes he frowned when it hurt. Sometimes he teased me for making him do one more. In the afternoon, we sat by the window and watched the light move across the floor. I spoke when he wanted to listen. I stayed quiet when silence made him feel safe. I learned the sounds of his fears and the shapes of his courage. "Tell me about your mother," he asked once, very softly. I told him about a woman who worked until her hands forgot how to rest. A woman who could make soup from almost nothing. A woman who believed that God lived in the small places where kindness happens. "What did she teach you?" Eli asked. "That love doesn't always look like a smile," I said. "Sometimes it looks like staying. Sometimes it looks like leaving so someone else can stay." He nodded like he understood more than a child should. Not everyone was happy to see me there. The tutor, a thin man with tired eyes, looked at me like I had stolen a lesson from him. The driver never met my gaze. And Vera's disapproval was like a draft under a door. Always there, always cold. One afternoon I heard her speaking in a low voice to someone near the pantry. "It isn't proper," she said. "There are lines." A man answered, "The boy wants her." "The boy wants many things," she snapped. "We don't rearrange a house for a passing woman." "Maybe she's not passing," he replied. Their voices faded when they saw me. I kept walking. Some battles are won by not entering the room. The first time Mr. Donovan and I sat alone, it was by accident. He found me in the courtyard, hands folded, listening to the fountain. "Do you like the sound?" he asked. "It reminds me of rain when it's kind," I said. He sat across from me, less grand in the afternoon light. "Eli laughs now," he said quietly. He didn't laugh for a long time. "Grief is heavy," I replied. "It asks for help. Children don't always know how to ask." He looked at the water, not at me. Sometimes fathers don't either. We were quiet together. The fountain spoke for us. That was the first time I wondered what kind of loneliness sat behind the glass walls of his power. Then came the meeting, the one I didn't know I needed to fear. A group of board members arrived to discuss funding for the foundation his late wife had started. Women in smooth dresses. Men with ringing watches, polite voices, thin smiles. I was leaving Eli's room when I heard them greet him in the hallway. One woman bent too low, her voice too sweet. "How are we today, dear boy?" "Better," he said, glancing toward me. "This is Ruth." Everyone looked. A few nodded. One man's eyes slid over me like I was furniture. Another whispered to Vera, who tilted her head and did not smile. Later, in the kitchen, I heard the edges of their words. Influence on the child, proper caregiver credentials. The optics, Michael. They called Mr. Donovan by his first name when they wanted something. I learned that quickly. That evening, he asked to see me. His face carried the weight of conversations that leave marks. "There's pressure," he said. "Some people think your presence is unconventional." "Unconventional doesn't mean untrue," I replied. He exhaled slowly. "I agree, but there may be noise. I wanted you to hear it from me, not the walls." I nodded. "Thank you for telling me. If it gets too loud," he added, "say the word. I won't hold you here." I thought of Naomi's school list for next term. I thought of Michael wiping his brow, trying not to show relief. "I've been in loud rooms before," I answered. "I know how to keep the quiet inside." The noise arrived the next day in a prettier dress. A charity event at the house. People came with smiles and cameras. Eli stayed in his room. Crowds made him shrink. I stayed near the back, ready if he called. A woman I recognized from the board approached me, her perfume a cloud. "Ruth, is it?" she said, smiling like a test. "How lovely to meet you." "Good evening," I replied. "I've heard so much," she purred. "You've made quite an impression. Tell me, do you have formal training?" "In loving children," I said gently. "Yes, 2 of my own." Her smile tightened. "Of course, such a blessing. Still, one must be careful in sensitive environments, like human hearts." I asked. "Yes, very careful." She blinked, then moved away, as if I had spilled something on her dress. Across the room I saw Mr. Donovan in conversation. His jaw was tense. Vera hovered near him like a shadow trying to be a person. I slipped upstairs to check on Eli. He was awake, listening to the music drifting from below, a gentle piano, the kind that knows how to be both sad and kind at once. "Stay with me," he said. I sat on the edge of the bed. We watched the light from the hallway draw soft lines on the floor. I told him a small story about a boy who planted a seed in a cracked pot, because someone told him nothing grows in broken things. We were both quiet at the end. When the house had mostly emptied, I rose to leave. In the hallway, I met Mr. Donovan. His tie was loose. His eyes were tired. "Thank you," he said, "for today." "Good night," I replied. "Ruth," he said, stopping me gently, "if it ever feels unsafe, tell me." "It doesn't feel unsafe," I said. "It just feels watched." He nodded. Sometimes I forget how to make a home feel like a home. 2 days later, Naomi came running up our road after school, breathless. "Mama!" she cried. "Look!" She held up her phone. There was a message from an unknown number, full of mean words about me, about where I came from, about what I must be doing to be allowed in that house. I read it slowly, then set the phone down like a cup that might break. "Words thrown from shadows," I said. "They hurt less when you put them in the sun." Michael stood by the door, jaw tight. "Say the word," he told me. "I'll find out who sent it." "No," I said. "Let the shadows shrink on their own." That night, I could not sleep. I listened to the roof creak and the cat snore and the soft breathing of my children. A question sat like a stone in my chest. What happens to a small life when it is pulled into a big house? The answer began the next morning with a simple request. "Come early," Mr. Donovan's message said. "Please." I arrived at dawn. The house was quiet, the sky the color of unspilled milk. In Eli's room, the curtains were drawn. He lay on his side, eyes open, face pale. "It hurts today," he whispered. I sat close and took his hand. "We will go slowly." We did the smallest stretches, counting like we were praying. When we finished, he was sweating and shaking, but his eyes had that steady light I had come to trust. "Ruth," he said suddenly, "will you promise me something?" "If I can," I whispered. "Don't leave when people whisper," he said. "People always leave when it gets hard." My throat tightened. "I won't leave because of whispers," I said. "When I go, it will be because it's time, not because someone else decided my steps." He nodded, content for now. When I stepped into the hall, Vera was waiting. "Mr. Donovan needs you in his study," she said. Now, I followed her. The study door was half open. Inside, Mr. Donovan stood with 2 people I didn't know. A woman in a neat suit with papers, and a man with sharp eyes that took quick pictures without a camera. "Ruth," Mr. Donovan said, voice measured. "This is Ms. Hale from legal. And Mr. Carter, our PR advisor." I stood straight. "Good morning." Mr. Carter smiled like a mirror. "We're dealing with a small situation," he said. "A narrative online. It's growing. We should get ahead of it." "What narrative?" I asked. "That you're here for reasons other than caregiving," he said lightly. "Words like feathers, hiding stones. Nothing we can't manage, but we'll need to set boundaries. Limit your access. Reduce visibility." I felt something old and stubborn rise inside me, the part of me that had walked into mud without asking permission. "I come when the boy calls," I said quietly. "I sit with him when he is alone. If you call that visibility, then light is the accusation." Mr. Donovan raised a hand, not at me, but to slow the room. His jaw worked. "We will not shame kindness," he said. "We will protect it." Ms. Hale cleared her throat. "Legally, we must formalize the role more strictly. A contract with expectations. Also, a background check." "Do it," Mr. Donovan said, not taking his eyes from mine. "If Ruth is willing." I nodded. "Check what you like," I said. "You will find a life of small things done with care." The meeting ended, but the air changed. I felt it a tightening, a drawing of lines on floors I did not own. On my way out, I passed the wide window that faced the garden. The fountain sparkled. The grass was a miracle. A bird hopped on the stone ledge, cocking its head like it knew a secret. I pressed my palm to the glass, just for a second. It was cool and firm, a transparent wall between 2 worlds. That evening, a car I didn't recognize waited at the corner of my street. When I reached my door, a woman stepped out. She wore simple clothes, clean and plain. Her hair was tied back. She smiled at me with tired kindness. "Ruth," she asked. "Yes, I'm from the hospice. Your neighbor, Mr. Aide, gave me your name. We need help with night shifts. You were recommended." I blinked. 2 jobs. 2 doors. 2 ways to be useful. "I have work in the mornings," I said. "But nights? I can try." She nodded. "It doesn't pay much, but it is honest." "I know the value of honest," I replied. "I will come tomorrow." When she left, Michael rubbed his forehead. "Ma," he said, "that's too much." Sometimes, I told him, more work makes the worry too tired to stay awake. I worked nights at the hospice in quiet rooms, where breaths were counted like beads. I held hands that were leaving and listened to stories that had waited too long to be told. I learned the weight of goodbyes that are also thank you. In the mornings, I returned to the big house, where a boy learned how to trust his leg again, and a father learned how to trust silence. Between those 2 worlds, I walked like a bridge. But bridges feel every step, and sooner or later, something heavy comes. It came on a clear morning, the kind that looks harmless. I arrived to find the house humming with nervous energy. Vera's heels clicked like warnings. The driver's hands were too still. "Where is Eli?" I asked. In the therapy room, a maid whispered, "With a new specialist." I hurried there. The door was open a crack. Inside, a man in white pushed Eli to stretch farther, harder. "Pain is just information," he said briskly. "Don't be dramatic." Eli's face was white with effort. "Please," he gasped. "It hurts." "Push," the man said. I stepped in. "Enough," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Pain is also a boundary." The man turned. "Who are you?" "The person who knows this child's face," I replied, "and that face is saying stop." Mr. Donovan appeared behind me, eyes sharp. He took in the scene in one long breath. "Out," he told the specialist. "Now," the man sputtered. "Sir, with respect." "Respect is not what I just saw," Mr. Donovan said, voice like iron laid flat. Out, the room stilled, after the door closed. I knelt beside the bed and stroked Eli's hair. "You're safe," I whispered. He clung to my hand. Mr. Donovan's gaze met mine across the bed, a line of trust drawn without words. That night, when the house had settled, I walked past the study and heard a voice I didn't recognize. I paused. "You're compromising yourself, Michael," the voice said. "A woman from nowhere. The press will build their own story. You're a businessman. Act like one." Mr. Donovan answered, voice low. "I'm a father first." "A father protects the perimeter," the voice insisted. "Not invites risk." I stepped away, heart steady. I knew then that a choice was coming, not just for him, but for me. The next afternoon, I found a letter tucked into Eli's storybook. His handwriting was careful, the way children write when they want their words to be believed. "Ruth, if they ask you to go, please don't leave without saying goodbye. People leave. They always leave. I will try to be brave, but I don't know how without our counting. Love, Eli." I pressed the paper to my chest. The room smelled like sunlight and folded blankets. I sat down and wrote a reply on the back, each letter slow, like a promise. "Eli, I will say goodbye only when it is truly time to go, not when fear asks me to. Until then, we keep counting. Love, Ruth." I put the book back, our words hiding together, waiting for the next turn in the story. That evening, as I prepared to leave, Vera stopped me in the foyer. Her face was pale with anger. "You are making this house soft," she said. "We need rules, not feelings." "Rules without feeling are just walls," I replied. "They don't make a home." She stepped closer. "You think kindness is enough." "I think kindness is the start," I said, "and sometimes the end." She opened her mouth to speak, but footsteps approached. Mr. Donovan stood there, eyes moving from her to me. "Ruth," he said, "could you come to the study? We need to talk." I followed him, my heart walking carefully behind. He closed the door. The study felt heavier than usual, as if it knew what we were about to say. "There will be a formal review," he said. "Of your role? Of everything?" I tried to stop it. "I couldn't." I nodded. "When tomorrow?" he said. 10 in the morning. I breathed in. I breathed out. "I'll be here." He looked at me for a long moment. "I don't know what the right thing is anymore," he confessed quietly. "I only know what feels human." "Sometimes," I said, "human is the right thing." even if it is not the easy thing." He gave a small, tired smile. "Thank you," he said, "for teaching my home how to breathe again." I left the study and walked down the long hallway, past the painting of the river that never floods. Outside, the night was clear. The fountain whispered, the house exhaled. And I knew, without needing anyone to tell me, that tomorrow would be the day when kindness would be asked to show its backbone.